The MCU is dead after Endgame. None of these TV shows or movies will be any good because the Infinity Saga is over. You're not just wrong, you're stupid. Oh God. Sorry about that guy. He's clearly an idiot because WandaVision is the first property in the Phase 4 of the MCU, since Far From Home is considered the last movie in Phase 3. And my God, was this show a home run for Marvel. The final episode of the show just premiered today as of the time I'm recording this video, and after over a year without a Marvel property due to the wonderful pandemic, I am very excited that I finally get the chance to do a video on Marvel's latest release, WandaVision. Now, whenever Marvel first revealed that they were going to release a bunch of shows exclusively on Disney+, I was super excited because that meant that there was going to be more Marvel content for me to consume, and I could consume it from my own home, which is definitely an added bonus. So out of all the shows that Marvel revealed they were going to make, like Falcon and Winter Soldier, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, Ms. Marvel, and of course WandaVision, I gotta say WandaVision was probably not the show I was most excited to see. The idea of the show taking place in a bubble reality where everyone just acted like characters in sitcoms from different decades, it seemed super cool to me, and obviously I was going to watch the show, but this show was so much better than I initially thought it would be. Episodes 1 and 2 are the most sitcom-like in the entire show, with the first episode's plot being a classic sitcom misunderstanding where Vision's boss is coming over for dinner, but Wanda thinks it's actually her and Vision's anniversary. The episode is basically just a sitcom from the 50s based off the Dick Van Dyke Show until near the end of the episode when Vision's boss starts choking on his food and his wife just sits there saying "stop it" over and over again. The music cuts out and suddenly you realize she's not talking to her husband. She's begging Wanda to stop all of this. It was so chilling and awesome, and then as soon as Vision helps his boss, everything just goes back to normal, which just further adds to the mystery of what the hell is going on. The second episode focuses on Wanda and Vision putting on a magic act for the neighborhood talent show, with Vision accidentally swallowing gum, which makes him act drunk during the show. So Wanda has to try to explain Vision using his abilities throughout the show. The episode pretty much plays out exactly like an episode of Bewitched or another 60s sitcom, except for a few odd occurrences like Wanda finding a fully colored toy helicopter, a radio that suddenly starts trying to communicate with Wanda, as well as odd behavior from two new characters, Dottie and Geraldine. However, the biggest shock of the entire episode comes at the very end, when a sword agent dressed as a beekeeper comes crawling up through the sewers and Wanda simply says no, which resets everything and things go back to normal. Now, these first two episodes of the show are entirely in black and white due to the decades they take place in, which honestly, I think was pretty cool. Now, I've heard complaints from friends of mine as well as random people on the internet saying that it's tough to get through these first two episodes because they were sitting down to watch the show expecting it to be just like a normal Marvel movie, but instead they're watching this black and white sitcom. Even though I strongly disagree that those first two episodes are tough to get through, I can sort of see where these people are coming from. However, in my opinion, I think that these two episodes do a great job of building up the mystery and tension of the entire series. And then when we do finally get episodes in full color, it feels earned. Anyway, the third episode of the show, which takes place in the 70s and pays homage to the Brady Bunch, is now in color, and it mainly focuses on Wanda being pregnant and going through all the stages of pregnancy at an alarming rate since she basically willed herself to become pregnant in the first place. Her pregnancy ends up messing with her powers, leading to some more typical sitcom hijinks until she finally gives birth to a pair of twins, Billy and Tommy, also known as Wiccan and Speed, with the help of her neighbor, Geraldine. As what has become typical with this show, there is a bit of weirdness going on, with Vision noticing the neighbors acting very secretive and odd. However, the biggest shock of the episode comes right after Wanda gives birth to the twins, when Wanda mentions her brother, Pietro, aka Quicksilver, who died in Age of Ultron, with this being the very first time he's been mentioned since that movie, and it's great to hear about him again. After Wanda mentions him, Geraldine asks if he was killed by Ultron, which suddenly snaps Wanda out of the sitcom and she turns on Geraldine. When Vision comes back into the house, Geraldine has vanished, and it's revealed that Wanda ejected her out of the town and back into reality. In the next episode, we mainly follow who Geraldine actually is, Monica Rambeau, and the episode begins with one of the craziest scenes in the show, where Monica comes back from the dead due to the blip after being snapped away for 5 years thanks to Thanos. She walks around the hospital as people reappear out of thin air all around her, and a doctor tells her that her mother, Maria Rambeau, who appeared in Captain Marvel along with the young Monica, died of cancer 2 years earlier. 3 weeks after this, Monica tries to catch up on everything she missed by going back to work for the government agency SWORD, which her mother founded many years earlier. The acting director, Tyler Hayward, asks her to investigate a missing persons case in New Jersey, and it's here where Monica meets Jimmy Woo, the most likable person on the entire internet right now, who you might recognize as Randall Park, who played Jimmy in Ant-Man and the Wasp, as well as Jim from The Office. Monica and Jimmy find an invisible border around a town, which ends up sucking Monica into it. A few days later, S.W.O.R.D. sets up an entire base around the border, and with the help of Darcy Lewis from the first 2 Thor movies, they manage to figure out what's going on inside the border. The S.W.O.R.D. agents try to make contact with Wanda, with Jimmy using a radio and a different S.W.O.R.D. agent going through the sewers, but nothing works until Monica comes crashing through the border. Back inside the border, right after Wanda ejected Monica Rambeau, she sees Vision as a corpse for a brief second, terrifying both her and me, if I'm being honest. In the next episode, we're in the 1980s with a Brady Bunch inspired episode. Wanda and Vision are struggling to calm their newborn babies until the kids age themselves up to 5-year-olds and then later 10-year-olds, solving the problem. Throughout the episode, Wanda and the boys spend time with their new dog, while Vision becomes more suspicious of what's really going on, in large part due to their neighbor Agnes continuously acting strangely. Vision manages to get through to a coworker for a moment who begs Vision to stop Wanda. Outside the barrier, or Hex as people are now calling it, Monica, Jimmy, and Darcy, one of my new favorite Marvel trios, further investigate Wanda's reality-bending abilities. Meanwhile, Tyler Hayward claims that Wanda broke into S.W.O.R.D. HQ and stole Vision's body, and the only solution is to send in a drone to take her out, much to the dismay of the trio who want to help Wanda. The drone attack causes the twins' new dog to run off and be killed, so Wanda steps outside the Hex and threatens the S.W.O.R.D. agents in retaliation. After that, Vision finally confronts Wanda, wanting to know what's really going on, when the two are interrupted by a knock at the door. The person at the door is revealed to be Evan Peters, who played Quicksilver in the X-Men movies, and now claims to be the recasted Quicksilver of the MCU. Now we're in the 90s, where the twins are acting like it's a typical episode of Malcolm in the Middle, but it's also Halloween, so everyone is dressed up in their classic comic book costumes. But there's still some uneasiness between Wanda and Vision, as Vision leaves claiming to be on the neighborhood watch, but he's actually investigating the edge of town. With Vision gone, Pietro and Wanda take the kids trick-or-treating, and Wanda starts noticing how weirdly Pietro is acting, and eventually she realizes that this is not her brother. Outside the Hex, Hayward orders agents to escort Monica, Jimmy, and Darcy off the S.W.O.R.D. base. The trio manage to get away, but Darcy stays behind to collect some data on Hayward while Monica and Jimmy escape. Then after Vision sees some people at the edge of town acting like zombies and talking to Agnes, who tells him that he's actually dead, he tries to break through the Hex, but he ends up being slowly disintegrated. Billy senses his pain with his newly developed powers and begs Wanda to save him, so she extends the Hex to save Vision, which also engulfs Darcy and most of the S.W.O.R.D. agents. In the next episode, Vision wakes up in the middle of a circus, where he finds Darcy and breaks Wanda's hold over her. The two of them then head back into town to confront Wanda, as Darcy catches Vision up to speed on everything that happened to him in the past few years. Outside the Hex, Monica manages to push her way back into the Hex, which alters her DNA and gives her some sort of abilities. Monica runs back to Wanda's house, where she confronts Wanda, who responds by yelling at her and flinging her through the air like she's nothing. Agnes, who had just taken the twins so Wanda could have a day to herself, Modern Family style, comes outside to comfort Wanda. Agnes brings Wanda inside her house, where Wanda tries to find the twins, and it's revealed that Agnes is actually a witch named Agatha Harkness. And the real explanation for all of the weirdness that's been going on is that and in the first mid-credit scene of the show, the fake Pietro captures Monica after she tried to go after Wanda. Now, I think pretty much everyone saw this Agnes being Agatha Harkness twist coming. However, I still think it was a good reveal. With Wanda now Agatha's prisoner, the two of them travel back through major points in Wanda's life and try to figure out how she created the Hex. They start with Wanda's childhood, where we see Wanda's obsession with old sitcoms, and then moments later, her parents are killed, and she and Pietro are trapped by a bomb. We then see Wanda when she was first exposed to the Mind Stone at Hydra, and we find out that the Mind Stone didn't give her her powers. She always had her powers, the Mind Stone simply amplified them. Next, we jump to right before Civil War, when Wanda is mourning the loss of her brother, and Vision tries to comfort her. And this is also where we get one of the best, most beautiful lines in the entire MCU.
But what is grief, if not love persevering?
Finally, we see Wanda right after the events of Endgame, when she goes to the S.W.O.R.D. base to find Vision's body. But she didn't actually steal Vision's body. Hayward just told people that, when in reality, She just wanted to give Vision a proper burial, but she ends up leaving without the body. She then travels to the town and finds the ruined house that Vision bought for the two of them to grow old in. And the sadness is finally too much for Wanda, and in a massive energy blast, she manages to transform the entire town and also bring a version of Vision into reality. With this final revelation, Agatha, with Billy and Tommy as her hostages, reveals that Wanda did all of this using chaos magic, and that Wanda is actually the Scarlet Witch. Then in another mid-credit scene, we find that Hayward managed to rebuild Vision, and this all-white Vision is now online. That brings us to the massive finale, where Wanda has to take on Agatha Harkness. It also brings us some Vision on Vision action, with the Vision Wanda created fighting the all-white Vision. Their fight was great and showed off creative ways Vision can use his powers, but the fight was resolved when Vision tells the white Vision that neither of them are truly the real Vision. And in order to make the white Vision the true Vision, our Vision helps restore his memories, and then the white Vision flies away, leading me to believe that we'll definitely see more of him in future Marvel properties. I feel like I've been saying Vision too much, but I do want to say that I really loved how their fight was resolved through philosophy instead of one of them just destroying the other. Anyway, while this is happening, Wanda opens the hex when Agatha makes her realize how much she's hurting all of the residents of the town by forcing them to be in the hex. But in opening the hex, Vision, Tommy, and Billy start to disintegrate because their lives are tied into the hex. So Wanda closes the hex again, but not before a bunch of sword agents get through. Meanwhile, Monica gets free from fake Pietro, who turns out to be the Ralph that Agnes kept referencing throughout the show, and Monica helps Tommy and Billy fend off the sword agents with her new powers. Also, when Tommy took the guns from the sword agents, he took one of the agents' hat and glasses, which was a great callback to the Quicksilver scene in Days of Futures Past. After the agents are taken care of, thanks to some last-second help from Darcy, Wanda tries using her different abilities to take on Agatha, with another great callback to Age of Ultron with the first time she used her powers. But it seems that Agatha has the upper hand until Wanda reveals that she used massive runes in the walls of the hex, so Agatha isn't able to use her powers, which Agatha taught to Wanda in the previous episode. Wanda is able to absorb Agatha's powers before trapping her in the town as Agnes. And the best part is that we finally get to see Wanda's new costume, which looks amazing. Then Wanda starts closing off the hex, and she has to say goodbye to her children and Vision, in what is a super sad, but also very satisfying conclusion to the series. Finally, after a brief conversation with Monica, Wanda flies off to learn more about her abilities. But that's not quite all, because we get not one, but two post-credit scenes, with the first one of those post-credit scenes being about a Skrull telling Monica that an old friend of her mother's, Nick Fury, wants to meet with her in space, which is definitely leading to Captain Marvel 2 and Secret Wars. Then the second post-credit scene is Wanda in a cabin with her astral projection reading up on her abilities when she hears Billy and Tommy begging for her help, a clear setup for Doctor Strange 2. And that's WandaVision. If I had to describe the show in one word, I would say original. This show was something new. It was weird and mysterious and sad and funny and also super rewarding to watch. And I say rewarding because not only is it awesome that Wanda and Vision got continuations to their stories outside of the movies, but the show also rewards Marvel fans with tons of hidden details, like the commercials throughout the series referencing a bunch of different names and things from different Marvel movies. My favorite one of these little details is actually when Jimmy meets Monica for the first time and he flips out his ID card with sleight of hand magic, which he was so obsessed with learning in Ant-Man and the Wasp, I actually laughed out loud when I saw this. Now, the acting in the show was phenomenal. Elizabeth Olsen was fine in all the other Marvel movies. Like, she wasn't bad, but I just never found her to be the strongest actor on screen. But in this show, she absolutely killed it. She would go from this typical 50s housewife or a mother in labor to this stone-faced, terrifying villain in an instant. Paul Bettany was great as Vision, and it's awesome that he finally got some well-deserved screen time, and of course, Kathryn Hahn was amazing as Agatha. I feel like all the actors had so much fun playing all these different characters throughout the different time settings, which made the show so much more fun to watch. But again, I really want to give it up to Elizabeth because she absolutely killed this role, and I cannot wait to see more of Wanda. So my only thing is that I kind of wish we didn't find out about what's going on outside the Hex until a later episode than episode 4, because I love the mystery elements to the first few episodes, and with episode 4 answering what's going on outside the Hex, I feel like it kind of takes away from part of that mystery. And I think it would have been cool if we didn't find out what happened to Monica initially after episode 3, and in the back of our minds we're thinking, what did Wanda do to her? And then maybe when Vision escapes the Hex for the first time, we can see her with the rest of the sword agents, and that's the reveal. But I understand why they wanted to give some answers early on, because like a comment that I read said on Instagram, the sword scenes are mainly just to catch stupid people up to speed. And I'm also sure that having the Monica-centered episode 4 later on in the series could have messed with the pacing of the show, so I totally get why they wanted to do that episode earlier on. Now, I'm sure that there's going to be some people disappointed in the finale because they had these crazy fan theories and the final episode of the show didn't live up to their expectations. There was no Mephisto, there was no Nightmare, there was no Doctor Strange cameo, but I thought it was an awesome finale with great fight scenes and a super sad and satisfying conclusion to this story. And that's pretty well all I want to say about this show. I'm going to rate it a 94 just because of how original and enjoyable it was. And if all the other Marvel Disney Plus shows are even close to as good as WandaVision was, then I'm already more excited for them than I already was. And that's all for me for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing, and I hope to see you in my next video.